From a closet, also known as the Jim McCarthy Voiceovers World Headquarters Studio, this is the JMVO Weekly Primer. Please subscribe, rate, and comment via jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com/podcast. This is episode 20, and a monumental episode it is because, first things first, not many podcasts last 20 episodes, so I'm happy to have this milestone with a great guest. This is the JMVO Weekly Primer. It's about making your life better through marinating your mind in good stuff. My name is Jim McCarthy, owner, operator, and chief bottle washer at jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com. I believe that as business owners, entrepreneurs, and overall salespeople, we are bombarded by negativity every day, and it's the last thing we need. If you want to see your life and business change for the better, start consuming, that's a new word, start consuming nurturing good stuff. My guest today is someone that I've been after for quite a while. He's written a book that's made a huge impact on my life, and I know is making an impact on a lot of other people's lives. He's the owner and CEO of CFF, Commercial Fleet Financing, and his name is Matt Manero. His company provides the means to finance trucks for various businesses and logistic-minded entrepreneurs. I actually came up with that term. Is that a fair way to say kind of like solo truckers, logistic-minded entrepreneurs, do you think?
Well, I love the mindset of the client. The downside is that we really don't do single truck guys. We really, the whole business has been built around what we call a 5-5-7. 5 years in business, 5 units in the fleet, 700 credit score. A lot of people think that when we say truckers, we're talking about, one truck startup, but that's not our business. Our business is commercial fleet users.
Right. Okay. So you've also written several books, the most recent, simply but powerfully titled, You Need More Money, a concept that seems obvious to most, but so it can be complicated to most as well. But before I get into that, I want to tell you that when we first met, we did meet at Coach Bert's house here in Murfreesboro, or actually out in Murfreesboro. I'm in Tennessee, or in Spring Hill, Tennessee. You had mentioned something about grit, and it really got me thinking about my father. And when you started talking about all things grit, it got me thinking about all the things that my father did back in the recession of the early 90s. It compelled me so much that I actually did a video about it, talking about the grit of my father. And I want to thank you for that, because it's a story, like an origin story that we talk about, that had to be told. That even though I had a great upbringing as a child, my teenage years were a testing ground of sorts, because all of a sudden everything we enjoyed in the 80s disappeared in the early 90s.
Yeah, man.
Thanks to that recession. And I tell those stories, and I want to start off by thanking you for that.
Dude, that's cool. Thank you for saying. Has your father seen it?
Well, he died in 2006, but
Gotcha.
it's one of those things that not a day goes by that I probably don't think about him in some form. So
got it, man. Awesome.
But the whole concept of you need more money is not simply just that concept. It's about finding the time and understanding that there are ways to make more money. You just got to start thinking about the small shifts to get there. I know the story, the backstory of how it came about, but please tell us about how the book came about for you.
Well, thank you, Jim, for having me. I mean, I'm happy to be here. I love that story that your dad was able to have a testimony from you to him, even though he can't see it anymore. That's cool, man, that you were able to get that out, get that story told. So the story of You Need More Money is directly related to my brother-in-law, John, my wife's only brother. He was diagnosed a few years ago at age 46 with stage 4 cancer. He thought he was going to the doctor to just get a shot. Hadn't been feeling all that well for an extended period of time. And that afternoon, he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And he ended up dying almost 1 year to the day after that. And he left a wife and 4 children with no health insurance, no life insurance, and $100 in the bank. And I wrote a story about it that ended up getting picked up and published by Penguin. And that story has made such a huge impact on our lives. And I know it's now starting to make impacts on other people's lives. So it was a pivotal moment in my life. That book has changed my life. And I don't mean it because it's sold so many copies and all that stuff. It's just given me perspective that was always inside of me, but boy, I hid it. I ran from it. And I almost disguised it through grit and toughness and, in a lot of situations, meanness. And I just don't have those feelings anymore, man. It's a weird transformation that I've gone through over the last couple of years.
And it's kind of it's funny, we had a really good conversation, of course, before we went live with this. We were talking about how things hockey sticked. And one of the things that you discussed at Coach Bert's house was the fact of torching your business to make it hockey stick, and you kind of went through that transform, a culture shaping, if you will, within your business, defining and shaping it.
Everyone should do it. The torch is what we did. The business hit $100 million a year, and I just knew it wasn't sustainable. I knew I didn't like it anymore. And I just decided I'm going to change it, man. And I'm going to tear the business apart and I'm going to rebuild it on company culture and mission statement. And that's exactly what we did. We were a $100 million business then, and this year we'll probably do 170 or 180. So we do it with no chaos. We do it with no blowups. No one's getting crazy and freaking out. No one's working 80 hours a week. Everyone has just ridiculously clear expectations. There's a calmness, an underbelly of energy in my office, but an overall calmness that every business should strive for. And I think so many people, Jim, are being taught this completely wrong message of how business is supposed to work, man. It's not supposed to be 80, 90, 100 hours. You can't do that forever. It's not supposed to be churn and burn and boiler room stuff. It's really, really important to get this stuff right.
Well, the story in You Need More Money is pivotal to that, because I would assume that it's kind of put that perspective in your life that, have a balance.
Well, I don't know that it's a balance. I'm not looking for balance. I am looking for purpose and mission and clarity. And I think once someone finds that, the idea or need for balance goes out the window. Like if someone wants to talk to me about the book, You Need More Money, they could call me on a Saturday or a Sunday. I don't care whether they call me at 10 o'clock at night. I responded to emails this morning from people about the book at 4 o'clock this morning. That's not out of balance for me. In fact, that's perfectly on purpose. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not looking for this. My weekends are my personal time and my week is my work time. I'm not, my whole life doesn't revolve like that. It's always on purpose.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a lot of people, when they get into, and this is something that Bradley brought up when I had him on the show a couple of weeks ago, the crap we are stuffed with when we go to school and what we're supposed to do versus what we're potentially able to do. And I think your book addresses that a lot. A lot of people, I think, don't really embrace the notion that they were put on the planet for a reason and it wasn't to work in a flipping box. And if you think that you're limited by your single source of income, you got to think again. I think the days of single source incomes are way over, and you got to start diversifying how you make your money.
That's not how I made my money. I made my money on a single source income, all in on commercial fleet, no apartment deals, not even really stock trades, no small business investments, no side deals, no hobbies, all in on commercial fleet. So with all due respect, I think that's actually not something I would agree with. I think people actually need to spend more time all in. They get distracted way too easily on these small chicken shit businesses that they shouldn't be in. What I call in the book, the platform. Most people are in the wrong freaking platform. And therefore their dreams, their lifestyle by design never becomes a reality because the platform that they chose never produces the revenue to get there. Some people may disagree with that, right? If money isn't part of someone's purpose, then that's their choice, and I don't fight it. But it sure as hell is part of my purpose. Mm-hmm. I need money. I need more money.
I was thinking of the person that does like the accounting at a business, and I meant like, doing if you have the job, the day job, the 9 to 5, find another revenue stream, whether it's flipping stuff on eBay, something like that.
Well, I mean, I'll give you an example. Billy's in the studio with us right now. Billy and I had a meeting yesterday in which Billy came to me and said, listen, I see where this marketing piece is going. I want to be the marketing manager. And I said, well, how much do you want? He said, I want $100,000. Now, Billy makes 65 grand a year for us. So Billy asked me for a $35,000 raise yesterday. And you know what I said? If you put out the job description that meets the criteria of the job, I'll do it. So in one ask, he potentially got a $35,000 raise just because he asked, because he saw the bigger picture and he said, I need to bring more value to the organization. But guess what? I got people in my office who I had to have a talk with last week who, when I pulled up at 7:45, were sitting in their car watching their Facebook feed, waiting for the 8 o'clock bell to ring.
Right.
Okay. And I brought them in and I said, listen, I just want to talk to, there was two of them in the parking lot. I said, I want to bring you, I want to talk to you about this. I said, why are you in the parking lot at 7:45, not in this office working? And I said, I want to ask you the question because it's not a reflection on you. It's a reflection on me. It's not your fault that you're in the parking lot wasting those 15 minutes. It's my fault. Why have I not provided you with the upside, the value proposition, the roadmap to achieve more as a single mother, and you not see that? That's not your fault. It's my fault. It's your school's fault. It's your parents' fault. It's your probably spouse's fault or ex-spouse's fault that you think the way you think, but it's my fault that I haven't adjusted it. And I want to talk to you about it today.
Yeah, that's and it's a sales proposition, which every meeting to get a raise, I think I've treated them like that, and I've gotten lazy at times where I didn't go. I would just take the standard 2 to 3% cost of living. But when I really wanted to get a good raise, 6 to 7%, I would put together, I guess, what I know now as a sales proposition, a value proposition of here's what I've done in the past, year. Here's what I brought to the table. I think that is worth X, or here's what it's yielded or is potential to yield. A lot of people don't think that way. They just think inside, this is it. How am I supposed to? And then in the book, you talk about allotting 40% towards savings in that, which I am in accumulation mode. I think I'm still in broke mode, actually. So working.
Well, that's powerful to say it. That's powerful, dude. It's so powerful to admit where you are. The 3 phases of wealth. What you're talking about is 3 phases of wealth in the book, where I define broke, accumulation mode, and rich. Dude, that's strong. Look, I do want to address something. I mean, people don't have, in the book, I walk through that process of how somebody gets a job. What you're referring to is my version of what I call the annual report, right? You got to put your stuff out there. But the problem is you asked for 7%. Well, 7% isn't enough. Billy asked for 80%. That's the right ask. 7% is too damn small, because if you're only producing enough value to warrant a 7% raise, it very rarely will produce enough income to move the needle of net worth. We need to make big jumps. We need to go from 65 to 100, from 100 to 150, from 150 to 250, from 250 to 5, from 500 to a million. I'm living proof that it can happen. And that's the problem. We're asking for 3%, 5%. But we're being offered 3, and we ask for 7, and we negotiate on 5, and we all feel good about it. And the reality is we should all feel like shit, because it didn't help nobody. It didn't help the business if we only think the person's worth 5%, and that 5% sure as hell didn't help the individual at home. 5% a year raise doesn't do shit for somebody's net worth. We need to think bigger.
And that's the problem, is a lot of people aren't taught that way. And intrinsically, as of late, it's been foisted upon our culture to start thinking that way. Thinking big.
Congratulations, Grant Cardone.
Yeah, Gary V. I mean, well, I don't know. I mean, Gary V. Cardone thinks that V teaches people how to be poor.
Well, I don't know his opinion on that, but what I know is his impact on me and millions now, I think, of other people was through this book, The 10X Rule. That book changed my life.
I agree.
I never understood that I was competing against myself. I always thought I was competing against everybody else. And I mean, that concept of potential never existed in my mind for all those years, man. I'm running my business and all that sort of stuff, dude. I thought I was trying to beat everybody else instead of just beating myself. And when I got it, like we were talking about earlier, then the hockey stick happened for me, as it has for so many other people.
It's putting that number on paper and looking at it every day. And what do you want to do this year? Okay, times it by 10. Does that number
times it by 10, and then create the deeper level of commitment and retest who the hell you really are. Because the problem with the 10X theory, my friend, is most people never get to 10X. They start at 0X, and when they get to 3X, life just got better, right? The bills aren't on pink slips anymore. Everybody feels a little better. And then they begin to coast. They never touch 10X. He touches 10X, right? He's the one guy I know that operates at a ferocious speed all the time. Most of us just coast, man. We get to 3, 4, 5, some tap 7. Nobody ever gets the 10x.
There's a notion of, okay, you can have that attitude throughout life, and it's living life to the fullest, but at what cost and at what sacrifice? I've known people that, should have gone through the process you have gone through, but in spite of themselves have built great businesses. Okay, one guy comes to mind. He died a year and a half ago at 57 years old, and just ran his business. I mean, he would run through people. I think that I worked for maybe 2.5 months, and in the first week I was there, he must have fired 7 people, and continued on with that path. I was gone 2.5 months, 3 months later. I didn't have a chance to move.
Yeah, because you have a high tolerance for pain. That's why.
Yeah, and he just.
Hey, here's the thing, Jim. Though, here's what's so important: that people think that easy doesn't. Let me rephrase. Easy is not the right term. Calm, cool, collected is not as prosperous as chaos and 10x and madness. And I'm here to say in living proof that it is. Our company was chaotic for 18 years and our hockey stick occurred when we removed the chaos and we went back to systems and structure and culture and happiness and communication and conversation and care. I got a buddy who's built a huge company, and I always said, tell me why your secret. I ask him all the time. I know the answer, and he jokes about it. He says 4 letters, LOVE, love. And it's a big freaking business, man. And he says the business is built on love, and my business was built on hate. And then I changed. I changed, and the rest, it took off.
Well, what kind of things did you have to put out there or eliminate that you were doing that all of a sudden you noticed a change?
Well, I think you have to read a person's, right? And you retake your business through the visualization of what it should have been in the first place, right? And we lose that as entrepreneurs. We think that, our restaurant is going to be something, and it very rarely ever becomes that. In fact, it just becomes something totally different. It just becomes whatever is required to make the minimum income to not get evicted. And it's so sad when you see that. It happens in every business. I use restaurant, but you could use it in the printing business, right? The guy has these fields of grandeur, and next thing you know, he's breathing in fumes 80 hours a week, and he's opening and printing and selling deals and cleaning and closing. It just sucks. That's the existence for most business owners. And I just visualized the future and said, I'm not going to do this anymore. Yeah. And the only way I knew to do it was through looking for help. And I went and I found it. And I found it through this program called Business Finishing School. And I loved the program so much that I bought half the business about 2 months ago. So I'm now going to deploy that platform in my customers' businesses and for as many other businesses as I can possibly expose it to. That platform changed my life, man. And it's founded and created by my buddy Rick Sapio. He was after me for 2 years to come to the event, and I was always like, nah, forget it. And I went. And within the first half an hour, I raised my hand. I said, I'll take it. I'm in.
My buddy, my business partner in the LED business, he's a huge fan of yours, and both of us are. And he really wants to come out to the event in September, right, in Dallas? Yeah,
September 28th, 29th, 30th in Dallas.
It's not
look, my buddy said, it's cheap. It's $597. The price goes $697, then it goes $797, so you're closer. But look, my buddy Sapio has bought and sold 130 companies. And he runs his life on a flip phone, and he'll show it to you if you ask. He'll pull out his flip phone. He says, why would I ever lead a life that would require me to have a Facebook account? Isn't that brilliant?
Yeah.
Why would I ever lead a life that would require me to have a Facebook? He says his flip phone saves him 3 hours of wasted time a day.
Because of what he sees other people doing.
Yeah, just having to respond. It's hard. I send him pictures. He texts me back, says, did you forget that I can't open pictures on my flip phone? Can you imagine?
I just put up a picture of a friend of mine yesterday. I met this guy when I sold cars. I was selling Mercedes at the time. We're on a Saturday. He comes walking up to me, and I look at him. He kind of looks familiar, and we start going through the process. And I said, "So, what do you do?" He goes, "I work for Guitar Center." And then you probably could have read the look on my face. I was going, "You got to be kidding me." Guitar Center, dude, and you're at a Mercedes dealership. I know what these guys make at Guitar Center. It's not what you don't have the order. He looked right at me, and he goes, "Don't worry about it." I'm like, well, dude he could stroke a check. Let me tell you. So that's how it turned out. Went to go see him yesterday, and he's got no social media. But every year he was at Guitar Center, being in the position where he was, he pledged to himself to double his income every year, and has since become. I call him the Ari Gold. Are you familiar with Entourage, the show?
Oh yeah, sure.
I call him the Ari Gold of Guitar Center. And he has the mannerisms. He's got such, I don't even think he's 30 yet. And he's got such an intrinsic knowledge of how to sell. And it's enviable to watch this guy. No
cool.
social media whatsoever. But it's tough to look him up. But
we all know a bunch. We know a bunch of people that have no social media. I know a bunch
successful
of people. Super uber successful people that would never cloud their energy field with social.
Right? But then you got Cardone, who uses it so well, and Vaynerchuk, who does such a great job dominating on it.
Totally. You can't argue that it doesn't work, but for most people it doesn't, because they don't put in the work. And you got to remember, people forget, but Vaynerchuk was on YouTube in 2006.
Yeah.
You ever see that video where he shows through the 2,000 episodes of Wine Library?
Yep.
That's really powerful, man.
Mm-hmm. How long it took.
That guy was grinding. He was putting in the work long before any of us.
Let me ask you this. The Matt Manero of 2008 looking at you now, what would he say?
I don't even know if he could understand how I think now. And by the way, that's very hard for a lot of people to even understand. Even in my office, I've even had some people come and say, can we get the old Matt back? Right? I just don't want to do that. But listen, I have a real life example. My middle son got in long ago, right? And that is the shrapnel from the previous mindset, right? That is me pushing so hard and not being present. And thinking that I was parenting when really what I was doing was just climbing hills and checking boxes, doing select sports, traveling all over the country, dropping 5 G's a weekend for my kid to get on some shitty team in 6th grade. It was just so stupid. And thank God it worked out okay. That it was minor infraction, but it woke me up, man. And I'm wide open to being woken up a lot lately.
Right.
And this woke me up and said, come on, man. Really get there, right? And where are you getting there? Maybe you're a better boss and all that sort of stuff, but are we really living it at home? And my son and I spent an entire week together. He was doing work and busting his ass in the heat here in Texas, and we loved it. We loved the rides to the office. We loved the rides home from the office. We loved the conversations. And, I used to say to my kids, Jim, hey, you guys want to go up to Home Depot? And they'd be like, nah. And I'd let them. I'd let them stay and play Fortnite. Not no more. No. I was just being nice when I said, you want to go to Home Depot? We're going to Home Depot. Get in the car with me, buddy. We're going to roll around for a little bit. We're going to spend a little time together, pal. And that's, I think, what we do. We think that we were parenting by asking our kid, but really we have to go 2, 3, 4 steps deeper to parent. It's tough, man.
It is. I have
you got kids?
a 12, 10, and 6-year-old. Girl, boy, girl.
There it is, man. Beautiful. But, mine are 16, 14, and 12.
Yeah. I remember I was listening to the podcast you did. I can't remember her name, unfortunately. I'm so bad with names. But you had mentioned how you were making him sweep the parking lot.
Yeah, man.
But hey, it's funny because you remind me a lot of my dad in that sense that, growing up, we had a lot of we had a pretty good childhood, and like I said, the recession of the '90s hit, and it was all hands on deck. And I remember specifically, I must have been 13, 14 years old, and he just had a moment where it was back down to just him doing everything. after running a 20-person business for 10 years. And, I was on my summer vacation and I was in high school, and he says, I need you to come to work and man the phones for a week because, Carolyn's on vacation. And I said, well, no, I'm on my vacation. Yeah, that didn't fly.
Yeah.
That did not fly well at all. Yeah. This is what you're going to do. And, but I mean, he was also a product like your background. And I know your background in terms of your upbringing and the types of fathers that you had, stepfathers and such. He didn't have too much of a father either. It was his real father, but I don't think he had the opposite of what we experienced for him growing up, if that makes sense.
Totally. Totally. And the beautiful part is if you can, like you did in that video for him, I would love to watch that video. So is there any way you can send me that link? I absolutely want to look at that.
Absolutely.
But, listen, man, I mean, that's, we don't have to, my wife says this all the time. She says, listen, I'm all about your sob story, but just make sure that when you tell it to me, it was a long time ago, she says, right? She's like, I'm just sick of it. I just don't want to listen to it anymore, right? I really only want to listen to the upside, honey. And I think there's a lot of truth in that, man. It's good to purge and go through it, but sooner or later, it's got to be old freaking news. Like I don't even talk about that stuff anymore. I've cleansed it. I'm so comfortable with it. I harbor no anger towards it, or I'm just totally fine with it. I don't even it's like such old news, but for a period of time in my life, man, it was like all I could think about, right?
Sure.
And I think that's so important is, man, we got to get past so much of it, man. I love how Cardone says, have goals so big that your problems pale in comparison. I don't know if there's a better quote that I like more than that, because every time I'm starting to get drilled down into those problems, I just reset the big, fat, juicy goals, and those problems instantaneously become minuscule.
Oh, yeah. And it makes a lot of sense. Getting back to the book, let's talk about some takeaways that people can really start absorbing and obviously motivate them to buy the book for you. What are the biggest takeaways of the book? To me, it's assessing where you are in life and being okay with admitting and applying power that, look, you make the notion that $50,000 liquid cash is where you're getting from not being broke. And that made an impact on me. And we're now trying to put that stack and rack mentality to use. So we can then take that money and start putting it into stuff that actually makes us money.
The reserve account.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I think the book is broken up into two parts. So the first is the wake-up call, and the second part is the roadmap. And the wake-up call is what really isn't being talked about. People are chasing old numbers. They haven't really analyzed how expensive things have become and how the money has moved. And so we're chasing a lot of these old numbers, whatever those numbers are of what's in the 1% or what's $100,000 or what's $1 million, whatever. So I try to give some perspective on how I see those new numbers. And then the second part is literally the roadmap, the step-by-step process that I took to go from nothing to maybe something, if that's what people want to look at it as. I mean, I never play down. I only play up. So when it comes to finances, I'm always looking at a guy like Cardone or, Ed Milet and saying, well, those guys are made it, right? And I never really look back and say that some people might say, holy crap, Manero's made it. But whatever, it is just what it is. I just know that I put my family in a financial position where none of us have to worry about money anymore. And that's a goal that everybody should have. The question is, how much is that?
Right.
And that's where the lifestyle by design piece comes in. And I try to give roadmap and strategies on how you develop a lifestyle by design through core values and mission statement. Budgeting, yes, there is some work that needs to be done in the book. You need to figure out how much money you're going to need. And then how do you figure out how you go get it? What's the platform going to be? And then once you find that platform, what the hell are you going to do in it? How are you going to bring value? What problems are you going to solve? And how are you going to get paid? And I think the second half of the book is all of that for someone. I literally think it's a roadmap where somebody can follow from any age and from any financial situation on how to get back on track. The math is pretty simple, Jim. If somebody can put away $2,000 a month at 6% rate of return for 21 years, the math just produces $1 million. So the only real question is $1 million enough? And can you work on getting $2,000 a month put aside? The 6% will happen if you put your money in an index fund. The average index fund for the last 70 years has produced 9.2%. So 6% is conservative. You'll get 6%. It's just, can you get the 2 Gs to put away for 21 years? But that means, yeah, maybe or maybe not. It means that if you're 40, by 61, you can have $1 million. You just fixed your financial situation by focusing on $2,000, right? It's amazing what happens if you can do $3,000 or $4,000 a month over that period of time, dude. It changes big time when you can put a little bit more away. So those are the strategies that exist in the book. I'm not an investment guy. I don't talk about where you should put your money and all that sort of stuff. And then I think one last thing on it, my friend, is if somebody's given up and they've said, not in my lifetime, I don't think I can do it, that's no problem either, because you can hedge your brokenness through insurance. And somebody can literally go out and buy a couple $100,000 term life insurance policy to protect their family and their children and their loved ones for $100 a month. And so now you can just work on $100,000 a month and forget about getting rich, but at least you can have the insurance in place very cost effectively. You can have the insurance in place to know that if something happens to you, your family's taken care of. And you know, I saw the other side of that, man. My brother-in-law didn't have anything.
Yeah. What I think it's important for people to know is that there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. And you can, if there's something, I always ask people, what is it you've always wanted to do? I've seen so many people miserable in what they do. And what really saddened me in the last 2 months, I asked somebody that, and he said, I don't know what I always wanted to do. I said, you've never had anything you wanted to do when you were a kid? I wanted to be a drummer, a professional drummer, okay? Do it. There are ways to accomplish things in this day and age by using this and getting yourself out there. It's free freaking advertising, for God's sake. Now, of course, everybody else is doing it, and the noise level has gone up, but just go and do it. Figure out how to make it happen. But I've got kids. Okay, you can make excuses all day long. But, you know, I think, you know, and again, I go back to Gary Vaynerchuk. Make it a family event every Saturday morning to get up and go garage sailing.
I love it, man. Yeah.
And flip stuff on eBay and make yourself an extra 10, 15, 20 grand a year. There's your $2,000 a month, roughly.
Well, here's the guy's business. It's hitting record and telling the world what he didn't do and his regrets, and he'll find an audience for that. And who knows, maybe he can even turn that into a program, right? Yeah. I mean, we think we have to tell people what we have to do. Just go hang around a bunch of 75 or 80-year-old people like I do you did in that poker group. All they talk about is what you should do, which is their version of what they didn't do.
What they should have done.
What they should have done. They're telling you at 40 what they know they should have done and they didn't do. And that, if you can just look at it that way, that's the greatest interpretation or view of advice, right? From someone who missed it and wishes they did.
I spent 5 years working in a nursing home.
Wow. Holy smokes.
My wife was a home health aide for hospice. Talk about perspective. I mean, talk about making you think about life, because eventually we're all going to get there. You know, there's no getting out alive. And guys, you know, you might as well do it while you're alive and not have it. You know, regret is a horrible word. I wrote down a question: when is enough enough? And a lot of that actually comes to mind with something Tony Robbins had said. He said, you know, figure out the life you want to live. I hear so many people that want to be billionaires, and they have no idea what that means and how big that number is. He said, do you understand how long ago 1 million seconds is? If you had to take a guess, how long ago is 1 million seconds?
1 million seconds. Oh, Jim, you caught me. I have no idea.
It's about 32 days. It might be 15 days or something like that. But the math is within that month, time frame. He says, go 1 billion seconds ago. It's 32 years. They are
holy smokes.
Solar systems away from each other, you know? And when you have goals, I mean, it's good to have a goal to be a billionaire. You know, Brad Lee he wants to be a billionaire, and he'll get there. He's got his mind on it. I don't need that much money. That's just me, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. People think that that core values and principles and culture become the byproduct of revenue. And it's exactly the opposite, right? Revenue becomes the byproduct of clarity and core values and mission and purpose. I had it all wrong for most of my life, and now I have it crystal clear, and it's exactly how it's played out. The money has come in droves when I got that flipped around the right way. And so I challenge all the young people that I talk to, man. I like, you guys are spending too much time not really understanding what your core value is. And what that means is you're going down these bad roads. You're working for people you shouldn't be working for. You're trying to figure out the hacks, the get rich quicks. I spoke at this event in LA not too long ago, and the guy who spoke before me got up there and talked about how he was selling 10 grand a day on Amazon and all of the Instagram fake posts he was putting up and all this. I stood up afterwards. I'm like, I don't know what the hell this guy just said. I'm like, if you believe what you just heard from this 21-year-old kid who's selling 10 grand a day on Amazon because of fake Instagram posts and stuff, you're going to hate my message.
But
because I never heard more bullshit in my life than what this guy just laid on you guys, man. This is total bullshit.
Well, I think the key words there are 21-year-old. And I don't mean to downplay the young kids, but I'm sorry. There's something to living through an economic downturn that really creates the grit that we need.
Yeah. Like you're talking about with your dad, you know. Look, I watched Pursuit of Happiness with my kids last night, the Will Smith movie. You remember that one?
I do.
Man, I'm telling you, it was like I was reliving all the darkness in my life watching him struggle like that, right? Just the unbelievable despair that I have felt so many times in my business. And I was watching him deal with it. It was so wild. I hadn't felt that in a long time. What you're getting at is that's when grit is tested, dude. When it is darkest and you're looking into this just black hole of future, that's when you freaking find it, man.
You have to fight.
Not enough people. You have to fight through it and claw and scratch. And it's magical when you do it, man. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's awesome.
Because, you remember those times, and there's so many people out there that are are under 25 talking about vast experience in the 3 years that they've been doing something. And it's like, really? 3 years? Do you understand it? To you, that's a lifetime right now. But 3 years when you're 40, 45, 50 years old is like, it really is.
It's a big deal, man.
Kevin Prendeville, good buddy of mine, very disruptive and controversial figure he's quickly becoming. He says, why is there a stigma around making money? Is there a way to fix it?
Is that question for me or for you?
You go ahead.
Why is there a stigma? I think that I talk about it in the book. I mean, I think people feel like losers for not having it. And I think people feel guilty for having it. And so it's better to just play it safe, play it right down the middle. And that's really not much of an existence. So I think that's one of the stigmas. Is there a way to fix it? Probably not. I'm not even sure why we might want to fix it. It just is what it is. I just want to wake people up to it. I have learned the saddest lesson that any speaker has to learn. And that is that most people in the audience won't do anything with what you're telling them. And so I'm not trying to fix those big problems. I'm just trying to fix the 10 or 20% who want to be fixed, And
that is, I've heard that from a lot of speakers, that they get frustrated that people aren't taking, it's tough. It really is.
Yeah, I learned it. I learned it the hard way. I mean, it was weird when I learned that lesson. I'd heard it, but when I experienced it myself, it was kind of a bummer. And then it instantly changed to no. I'm very lucky because I got 20 people out of these 100 who actually do want to hear what you got to say. So freaking bring it, baby.
And that stuff takes time overall anyway. I mean, not to get spiritual or religious. I mean, Jesus had the power of convincing a lot of people, but it still took time for the seed to take root and to germinate and to produce, to flourish. Everything takes time with messaging, no matter what you're doing. I mean, with what we do as a lighting company, it's taken 3 years now to finally get to where we're starting to get inbound phone calls, and we've been out there beaten the drum for a couple of years. But it just takes a little bit of time. And a lot of what you're talking about, Robbins talks about, I know Cardone has talked about it, the frustration of people just not jumping on board. And it's just a work in progress when you go about it that way.
Well, it doesn't stop you from trying.
No, it can't. It can't. You got to keep on going. So in the podcast yesterday, and I thought about this as I was walking this morning, I was listening to it, you had talked about back in the day, with cell phones, it wasn't easy to go through if you wanted to date a girl, it was easier. You had to go through her father, right? It's not as easy as it is today. There's protocol involved and stuff like that. But you talked about growing up and everything. Were you kind of like me? Did you have a mullet?
No, I didn't have a mullet, but I did have a ponytail for a while. I pulled that in the back and that whole bit for a little bit. I mean, I graduated college in 91, so that was sort of like 91, 92-ish.
Pearl
Yeah, it was a little bit of the grungy thing. I rode a bicycle from the base of the Golden Gate Bridge all the way down to Mexico, trying to find myself and all that stuff.
Really?
That's cool. Yeah. I slept out and just no tent, no sleeping bag, just side of the road type stuff with a knife in case someone tried to steal my bike. I was going to kill him. And so I just all the journey. I'm telling you, I asked my mother when I was like 7 or 8 years old. I said, "Does God know what my life is going to look like?" And my mother said, "Yes." Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, that instant on, I had a very comforting feeling over my life that I was on a predestined journey, and that I think I found where he was pointing me, and that was to be a teacher. And I knew when I was about 15 or 16 years old, I was at football practice, getting blasted in the mud. And I remember, like it was yesterday, I remember me saying to myself, that I want to be a teacher. I want to be a coach, just like this guy who's grinding on me in the mud. And then I learned it's very difficult to make money doing it. And I got away from it. And wouldn't you know it, now all these years later, through business finishing school and writing and stuff, I'm back to what I was supposed to do, which is be a teacher and a coach.
But you also have the horsepower to do it. You have the equity.
Now I have a goose that lays golden eggs. But that's no given. Listen, I mean, we're in this blissful economy. Everyone's talking about the hockey stick and how great things are. Yeah, you should be doing good in this economy. I mean, it's harder to do bad in this economy than it is to do good. And that chicken going to come home to roost here in about 18 to 20 months, and all that crap that we see and believe will be going away. Everybody will be tested.
The rubber will meet the road. Yeah.
The rubber will meet the road. I've been through 3 of them, my friend. So, 95, 01, 02, 08, 09. I mean, I've been through it 3 times. So I ain't no stranger to, like they say in The Godfather, right? We're going to the mattresses. Yeah. I know all about that shit.
Yeah. And it builds your character, and you know exactly what to expect and how to weather those storms. And that's where a lot of your coaching ability comes out of. There's so many geniuses out there that haven't lived through some people that even you and I both know very well that have not lived through an economic correction.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one. But the other thing, too, is you also need the reserve account, which we talk about in the book, right? You need the reserve account, which is what allows you to weather those storms. And it's vital. You just have to have it. It's the only thing that saved me through the 08, 09 was that reserve account. And we burned through the whole damn thing. And we were probably 6 months from being totally broke and out of business. And that reserve account saved my ass. And I remember the day, man. It was with just a couple of guys that are still with me. And it was like, wow, that was a really busy day. We haven't had a day where the phones actually rang to us in a long time. And I just instantaneously said, that was the day it changed. And that's it. We'd weathered the storm. I'd watched all these other guys go out. And that day it changed. And we've been on a crazy run since then, as so many other people have too.
I think for a lot of people listening or watching is to understand that although these corrections can take a year, 2 years, 3 years to find ways to weather those storms, because it's not going to be forever. Just like how it is a peacetime economy right now, this will not last forever. We go through cyclical times, and
you bet.
And to understand that, like where I am now, to stack and rack, to weather those storms, and either get into something that actually has a cash flow component to it, to where it can pay our bills. But understand that during those times, that's where the opportunities start to present themselves, because all of a sudden everything's on sale.
Yeah, they do. But it's always, one of those things where, your brother says, your brother-in-law or your uncle says, oh, could you imagine if I bought that beachfront property? I could have bought it for $20,000. You know what it'd be worth today? When it's like, yeah, but who had the $20,000 to buy it? Right?
Back in the day.
It's always the problem.
That's why you say that's. But again, that's what experience and economic cyclical endurances teach you is save and put things away and optimize your cash flow, which is something I wish I did. I was always in a static job. But, and then I always tell people I learned so much in the car business. It was like a trial by fire. I thought I knew how to sell until I got into the car business. Then I really knew how to sell. You had to close. And you had to back up against the wall. Another question before we, I don't want to take up too much of your time. So they make a movie about your life. Who plays you?
Wow. I never had that happen. I think, I think my wife or my kids would answer it and say Fred Flintstone should play me. That's what they would say. But I would pick Clooney probably if I had my choice. I just think Clooney's cool as shit. But my kids would definitely say Fred Flintstone should play.
I try and come up with good questions to make it memorable, man. Hey, so since my show's about marinating your mind in good stuff, what are some of the things that you are marinating your mind in on a daily basis these days?
I'm telling you, man, I surround myself with winners. I cannot stand laziness. I look at it like this, Jim. If your hand is always on the throttle and you consciously make the choice to pull that throttle back, you and I are probably not going to get along very well. Mm-hmm. I want to be around people who want to run push down, full out throttle in whatever that direction is, whether it's nonprofit organizations or fitness or money or whatever. I just want to be with people who are playing life full out. And I do not want to be around people who consciously say, well, I could go harder, but let me pull back. So number one, I have to surround myself with winners. I spend almost no time in media at all. I do social because of the book promotion, and I do want to communicate with people, but I spend absolutely no time watching the news. I haven't read a newspaper, and I don't know how long. I'm living my freaking life by my design. Mm-hmm. And it requires laughter. It requires money. It requires health. It requires love. And it requires friends, man. It requires some cool people around you. My wife has this great saying. She says, the greatest gift you can give to your children are the people you bring home to dinner. Mm. And, wow. I just want to be around cool people, man.
And so, surround yourself. The people you surround yourself with, they lift you up or they take you down.
Dude, I want to be around winners. I want to be around people who are winning. And it has absolutely nothing to do with their bank account. I don't care one bit about that. I want to be around people who are living their lives.
What is your big goal, your big, audacious, hairy goal?
My number one core value is to be a better father to my kids than my father was to me. I think I've done a pretty good job with that, but this trouble that my middle kid got into recently was a new wake-up call for me to really test that core value and say, is that really how it's playing out? I mean, ask yourself, right? I mean, listen, you're in great shape, but, the doctor says that you need to lose 50 pounds. Well, you're really not in great shape then, okay? Your kid gets in trouble. Maybe you're actually not being the greatest parent, because I didn't get in much trouble as a kid, So I got to work through that and figure that out. But the big wins for me are I want my children to want me to talk to them and to want to talk to me. I want them to pick up my phone call. I want them to ask me for advice and run ideas by me and have a meaningful relationship with me. I don't have that with my old man. I have forgiveness to him, but I don't call him for anything. Like, he's never the first person I call if there's good news, ever.
My father-in-law once, he tells a story sometimes about when he was running a business back in the 80s. He and my father were about the same age, and He was going out to a show down in New York City at the Javits Center because he was in the giftware business and they had a setup there. And he was always taking all the weekends away from everybody and traveling. And he was about to take the turnoff of 84 going on to 684 heading down south. And all of a sudden, Cats in the Cradle came on the radio. And he says that was a turning point in his life where he says, you know what, I've got people and I pay people to do this for me. So they're going to be there. I don't need to. And he came right back home and never forgot the fact that he's got to, you have a responsibility as a father. And buddy, I hear you. I weigh that on myself every single day because I'm in the role of, hey, instead of you seeing your dad on his phone or playing video games, I'd rather you see me working to provide a living for this family. That's where we are right now.
Yeah. I think it's important to do that. And then it's also important to just, bust out the fishing rod, man, and just shut up and just let the kid talk, right? Ask the kid, what do you want to do today? My buddy, Jim Shields is producing this program called 18 Summers. Mm-hmm. And, he basically says that you have 18 summers with your kids, and right. So if your kid's 15, you got 3 summers left. And what are you going to do with them?
That's, when you break it down that way, it hits home.
It's powerful stuff, but listen, all of it's all winnable and fixable. And, we're not all perfect, man, but we do need clarity on what it is that we want. What does this lifestyle by design look like? And I feel like I'm on the other side of designing that, you know what I mean? Now I'm on the living side of what my life is supposed to look like. I really love just about every single day. And for most of my career, I couldn't say that.
Are we going to see you? Are we going to see you on the 10X stage coming soon? Or
it's a tough deal. I mean, I'd love to be there for the exposure and to help a lot of people. But and Cardone and I are buddies. But he's a tough guy to work a deal to get on stage with. There's a big exchange that occurs there, whether it's in value or what have you. It's not just him being a nice guy about it. So I look at that as I still have to earn my keep. Right. I still have to produce more value to the marketplace to be able to be known as somebody who can do it. I'd like to be there because I'd like to help a lot of people, and I love Cardone. That guy's helped my being and my life and my business, and I become I hope he would consider me a trusted friend that would do almost anything for him. I really care about that guy a lot.
From what I've known about him when I was in the car business to where he is now, I think his thought processes, much like yours, have changed drastically. He just
a lot of guys are like 60. That.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just turned 60 and he's got 2 little girls. I mean, I think it's one of the things that drew me to Ed Milet was I saw Milet on Cardone and he was talking about what an asshole he had been in his previous career, and it was his biggest regret. And I would share that, and he and I become buddies just to be able to talk about that. People can change, man. I used to say zebras can't change their stripes. It's not true. Zebras can change their stripes, man.
It's seasons of life. It makes you start reflecting. I mean, we are who our 40s are, especially 30s and 40s are defining us. And then 50s are more reflective. I would say. I'm not there yet, but I mean, that's my take on it. I would say.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't want to be reflecting too early, man. I still want to be on the field.
Yeah.
So, but it's just a redefining of what it is that what the next chapters are going to look like, mm-hmm. And I think for the first time in my life, I think I have crystal clarity on it. And for anyone who thinks that money don't matter, you're way wrong on it because it helps with that clarity, man.
It does. Really does. And, a lot of faith plays into that as well. I mean, there have been times where all of a sudden we get money out of nowhere. My wife calls it the money angel.
That's awesome, man.
But Matt, man, where can people find you? Is it mattmanero.com?
Yeah, it's mattmanero.com, Matt Manero on social. The book's called You Need More Money. Dude, the biggest thing I learned from our time together was in our very first couple minutes, man, where you told me to stay focused on a stream of consciousness. And I felt myself going in and out of it even today, Jim, where, there was, I'm a sales guy, right? So there's a moment where I feel like I'm selling, and then there's a moment where I'm pulling back. But your suggestion to stay in a stream of consciousness is very powerful for me today. I appreciate you giving me that one.
No, not a problem. Do you listen to your own stuff?
It's funny, man. I really don't. I really don't. I always hate to listen to it back.
The radio guy in me or the program director in me would tell you, air check yourself. Always air check yourself.
What do you mean by that? Like the 10 minutes before, or listen to it again?
Whenever people were on the air, the guys who really wanted to get better, and Howard did this, Imus did this, Opie and Anthony probably did this. They would run a skim tape, what is known as a skim tape. So every time you cracked the mic on, a tape would start rolling in the back, and it would record your breaks. And if you really wanted to get better, you would listen back to yourself to see how to get better. Same thing with a podcast. If there are things that you don't like, crutch words that you say, or you're not, I do a lot of, stumbling and stuttering and stuff like that. But, that's just, I guess, stuff I got to work on. I know it.
Well, I think the key of the stream of consciousness is, for me, is the preparation, though, right? Mm-hmm. To really get in the moment. Don't just jump in. I mean, I'm going from making a business decision to jumping on a podcast with somebody I don't know. Not today, because we know each other, right? But a lot of times I don't know who is. So, those are some of them. But then when the big ones, like a Patrick Bet David or a Milet, I'll spend hours in preparation for those, and they're much better because of it.
Absolutely. Well, Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to be on with me today. If you want to find out more about Matt Manero, go to mattmanero.com. Definitely follow him on the, I've got his handle. I'll have his handle down below his name, where you can find him on Twitter, Instagram, and those things. Go out and buy the book. Do yourself a favor and buy the book, because it is a roadmap to start thinking and making those small shifts to significant wealth down the road, whatever you can put away to start building that and getting to that accumulation mode, which is where my family is starting getting to. Definitely look that up. You Need More Money by Matt Manero, mattmanero.com. Of course, let me know if you guys have any guest ideas or topics that I should be covering on this podcast, the JMVO Weekly Primer. And of course, subscribe, like, comment, and rate the podcast, and help me start showing up on iTunes. That would be a grand thing for me. Matt, again, thank you so much for being with me.
Dude, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, buddy.